today's discussion. This stands as a very important session where we work out the way forward with our state partners, with country partners, and with MNRE. And we're going to be having deep dive discussions on the technology, both for turbine and building robust supply chain in the future component manufacturer. Also discussing some of the best practices on grid management, on RE integration, green financing, promoting offshore in the country, and further. So I invite our moderator of the session, Mr. Alok Brara, the CEO and publisher, India Infrastructure Publishing. Our panelist of the session, inviting Mr. Dinesh Jagdale, respected Joint Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. Mr. K.P.Rudrappaiah, the Managing Director, Karnataka Renewable Energy Development Limited, Government of Karnataka. Mr. M.A. Pise, General Manager of Maharashtra Energy Development Agency. Mr. Martin Hansen, Deputy Director General, Danish Energy Agency. And Mr. Gonzalo-Alfonso Navarro Hernandez, Economic and Commercial Counselor, Embassy of Spain in New Delhi. And the floor is for our panelists and Mr. Brara.
Very good afternoon to you, and welcome to this interaction with the country and state partners. We have about 50 minutes, and I think I was told by the organizers 3 minutes opening remarks, 3 minutes concluding remarks from me. I'm going to scrap that, because I think we want to hear more from our guests than you want to hear from me. And what we are going to do, I think the organizers had suggested 3-minute opening remarks. I, on my own, had suggested that you answer a few questions as well. So what I'm going to do is, to each of you, can begin with 3 minutes, and in those 3 minutes, you can either talk about whatever you would like to talk about, because I don't think you can do a deep dive in those 10 topics that were mentioned, but maybe you can just focus on what you would like or what is of interest to you. Or you can, in those 3 minutes, choose to answer the questions that I sent you. So that'll take us about 15 to 18 minutes, and then we will have perhaps 15 minutes of questions from me, follow up, and that will leave us with about 15 minutes of questions from the audience. So I do want a participative audience, and I think there are a bunch of you. I think we'll try to take more than 1 or 2 questions from you. Okay, so do keep that in mind. So we're going to do, with your permission, Mr. Jagdale, because you're representing the government here, with your permission, we're going to give the opportunity first to the guests who have come braving COVID, braving Ukraine, and braving other things. So Mr. Hansen is from Danish agency. And Mr. Hansen, if you can speak for 3 minutes about whatever you would like to speak about.
I would love to, but it would help me if I had a microphone.
That is true. That's very true. Can we get another microphone here, please? Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the introduction. I'm really happy. I'm really glad to be here. I'm Martin Hansen. I'm the Deputy Director General of the Danish Energy Agency. I'm responsible for our international cooperation, and we are having a cooperation with 19 countries around the world, where our goal is to share our Danish experience on different areas, especially offshore wind and onshore wind. India is among our biggest cooperation partners, and by far one of the most important partners we have. Denmark has many experience. We have had offshore wind turbines for more than 30 years, and we are here in India in order to share all our experience with our good friends and our good partners here, and we really appreciate the good work we are doing together. Denmark and India has a very long history when it comes to cooperation. Onshore, Denmark have been here for many years. We have been having a good long relationship with Wind Atlas, and now we are establishing a wind test center together with NIVE. So onshore, we had a lot of good experience today. And actually, India is one of the world's largest onshore markets, and I think you should be a little bit proud of that. Based on the success onshore, Denmark and India is now on a journey where we start focusing on cooperating on offshore wind. In September 2021, our Honorable Minister Singh and the Danish Ministry of Climate and Energy, they launched a Center of Excellence on offshore wind and renewable energy. Within this Center of Excellence, we are together with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. We are sharing knowledge on offshore wind. We have 30 years of experience in Denmark, and we are here to ensure that you learn all our failures and our successes in the hope that you can leapfrog when you are going to achieve your very ambitious targets. There have been in the Center of Excellence a huge progress. I just want to highlight a workshop this morning, which I had the pleasure to participate in with Jagdale, where we presented a financial modeling report on offshore wind. This report shows the finance, the numbers, the data behind the offshore wind turbines. Is focusing on levelized cost of electricity, and it also focuses on the viability gap funding for a potential first offshore wind turbines park. There were a very good discussion at these workshops, and I just think it underlines that there's a huge interest in offshore wind in India, and we are here to try to share our good experience with you. I see offshore wind as a reliable, as a cost competitive, and as mainstream renewable technology, and I see renewable energy and offshore wind playing a major role in the Indian energy system, complementary with solar, onshore wind, and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. And I'll have a few more questions based on what you said and others as well. We will next go not to Spain, because the gentleman actually I think is based in Delhi, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to go to Mr. Rudrappaiah, who's come from farther in Bangalore. Mr. Rudrappaiah, 3 minutes for you, sir, to talk perhaps about progress, opportunities, and whatever else you'd like to speak about.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Alok, for that introduction. Myself, Rudrappaiah, Managing Director, Karnataka Renewable Energy Development Limited, Bengaluru. Karnataka is a pioneer in bringing out the new policy initiatives way back in 2009. Further, we had bought solar policy, and recently we have released 2022 to 2027 policy, which is a very holistic policy in terms of attracting renewable energy projects. I'm happy to share that in terms of we stand almost one of the top 5 states in the country as far as the total installed capacity is concerned. We have a 30 gigawatt RE capacity 15 gigawatt, which is almost 53% of the total installed capacity. And as far as wind is concerned, we are in the 3rd place. And we have taken some new initiatives in the field of solar too. The Pavgada Solar Park with a capacity of 2050 megawatt was commissioned in the year 2009, which was the biggest in the world at one place. So, and now we are coming up with one 500 megawatt solar park in Kalburgi, which will be up for bidding in a month's time. Apart from that, we are taking up some new initiatives like battery storage project, again which is going to be up for bidding in some time. And in the last budget, the government of Karnataka has approved a 5 gigawatt of hybrid park, a combination of both solar and wind, which is, we are under the preparation of DPR and all. So that is one thing which will submit it to MNRE in the due course for approval. So apart from that, we are giving more importance to skilling, R&D and incubation center in the field of RE. These are our new initiatives. So thank you. Thanks for this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rudrappaiah. We'll go to Mr. Manoj Pise now, who's come from Bombay. Mr. Pise, the same question for you. And again, you have the opportunity to say anything else, to talk about anything else you would like to talk about. But in 3 minutes. Yes.
Yeah, we are the first state to have a wind policy exclusively for wind projects. We announced first policy in 1996, then afterwards in 1998, then 2004, 2008, and 2015, and now 2020. we have very good installations, and we have around 51 sites which has more than 200 watts per meter square wind power density. And we can say that as per the NIVE reports, we have around 98,000 megawatts of wind power potential. We have announced 2020 policy on 31st December 2020. As per that policy, we have target of 25. The target is not limited to 2,500. You can have more than 2,500 megawatts. As per that policy, we can, industry status is allotted to the wind power projects. We have good potential, good infrastructure. We have around our DCL and transmission company and distribution company announced their wind. They have announced their grid potential at various locations. Grid for the wind power projects, they have announced some cluster-wise potential at various locations. They have identified the high wind centers, as well as for the solar sector. They have announced the solar grid connectivity available at various substations at lowest levels. And we are doing our best for the ease of doing business, where we are going for web-based registrations, web-based grid connectivity allotment. Everything is done on a web-based. The policy, it will be a very easier process and very simple, and it will be a very transparent way we are going to go ahead with the installation of projects. And we are also allowing them to register as industries, and that's why they will have some good benefits of industry policies also. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Navarro, your turn next. Mr. Navarro is Economic and Commercial Counselor at Spanish Embassy here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Alok. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here and to be with you all, such interesting guests. I would like to say that for me, India is developing a very interesting path in terms of wind energy. Right now, it is facing huge challenges regarding the development of offshore, but also, and I think that's more important in this moment, is like the repowering of the wind turbines that are already in place and also in the best spots. So from my point of view, I think that the work that the MNRE, NIWE, SECI, all of the government bodies are working really hard in order to deliver that aim. And I think it is very possible for everybody to reach that kind of objectives. The objective of having 1 gigawatt in a tender this year, and to have till 2030 the goal that India has proposed. Because I also think that we have to find the equilibrium between the economic viability and also the strategic autonomy of having securing the energy supply for India. So I believe wind energy can deliver that goal, and I think that the companies that are being developed here in India, also foreign companies from European Union countries, can collaborate between Indian companies and them to reach that level of manufacture of wind turbines, and not only wind turbines, because as we heard from the last conference, the infrastructure is key in order to develop this offshore sector, as the wind farms have to be built in the ports and not in the manufacturing sites. So in the end, I think it's a collective effort from everybody that has to be done, and I think India is the best path, the good path, in order to achieve it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarro. Mr. Jagdale, you are here, not just as the panelist. You are, of course, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Renewable Energy, Government of India. So, again, in 3 and maybe 4 minutes, since others have taken less, you can talk about what your perspective is And maybe also answer the two questions that I asked you to answer, which was, one was, what role would you like your foreign partners to play? And maybe you can add state partners to that as well. And what are the investment opportunities that you would like them to pursue?
Thank you, Mr. Alok, and very good afternoon to all in all here who have joined this interesting event, as we say. First of all, let me congratulate the IWTMA for really bringing out this conference, as well as the jubilant exhibitors that I see outside. It brings smiles on everybody's face, and that is what we thought is the right beginning of the financial year 2022-23. Hats off to Dr. Giri here, who has made this possible. And my compliments and congratulations to Cradle, who I understand has signed 6,000 megawatt of wind yesterday. So that's another feather in the hat that we can say. My home state, Mr. Pise, has explained the policies. But today's topic and today's discussions, yes, for me and for all of us, for sitting here and the Government of India, international cooperation is the key. We do value the relationship between India and the countries, and especially wind, when we see in the growth that wind has seen over the last 30 years. It is that cooperation that has enabled the technology development, the cooperation that has enabled the investments coming into the sector. And today, when we see on the radar of the Indian, we are fourth in the world in terms of the renewable energy installations. That gives you a sign of strength that we have come across from the 1990s to 2022 today. And this decade of action, the decade that another 9 years that we have in front of us, has to be a lot of action. We all are talking about clean energy transition. We are setting up a goal. We have set up a goal of 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel-based electric capacity. And to add this, one of the important technology resource is wind energy. We have seen over the last 3 decades how the wind has contributed slow and steady, how the Indian wind regime has evolved over a period of years. And those 8 states which have wind friendly today, right from the Rajasthan, and you go across down south to Tamil Nadu, and all those states have brought in favorable policies, have contributed as a partner to this country's wind energy growth. And since last 4 or 5 years, probably 2017 onwards, there has been a change in the shift in the business models that the Government of India started. Obviously, when you change a business model, there are some kind of disturbances that you may call, but obviously it is in the better interest of the entire business community, the stakeholders, as well as the government, to bring in some reality checks that we have now come across. While we say that the last year was fantastic for a renewable energy growth in India, wind has not done well, and we all appreciate and acknowledge we all collectively need to do more. While there has been almost a gigawatt of installations last year, but COVID has not helped this cause. There has been supply chain disturbances. There has been some kind of stops and starts in the overall installation process, and that has affected the overall progress. But nevertheless, wind has taught us, wind has given us that strength, and it is going to come back. It has the potential to support the grid system. It is one of those technologies which can actually complement the grid stability. It also gives you power around the clock in most of the wind sites that we see. So what are we doing next? While we have 40 gigawatt of installations as of cumulative installations, what is there for a business? How do we see the growth? If you just look at the optimized report of the Central Electricity Authority, which talks about 140 gigawatt of wind to be added by 2030. 8 years down the line, let's count 9 years, we have almost 100 gigawatt to go. So therefore, 100 gigawatt is a massive figure for all of us to achieve. And therefore, today when we have Denmark, we have Spain, and we have several other country partners, their experiences, their knowledge, their technology advancements is what we embrace. And we openly embrace. We openly are requesting them to bring in ideas and solutions that obviously they have seen and tested over the years. Offshore is one such element. which today the world has seen close to 40 gigawatt of installations. We are starting. And so all the learnings and knowledge, the failures that they have gone across, we are on a slightly better edge. And that's what I was discussing with Mr. Martin today morning, that you have gone through such a phase. Now we are here to look at you and get all the best practices that you have evolved. That's the center of excellence that they have brought in to the benefit of all the stakeholders. So there is the data, there are reports are coming. So offshore is going to be a very promising sector for all of us. And we also had been discussions with the Spanish team, with the Norwegian teams, the UK teams, with the Germans, US, Japan, and everybody is very, very bullish on the Indian offshore grid, wind energy sector as well. Onshore is going to remain, onshore will steadily progress. We will also have to bank on offshore. But to achieve that 500 gigawatt non-fossil based targets, every technology, every bit of project, every bit of electrical unit that is generated is important. And therefore, I see very, very exciting times forward. As the ministry, we are open to ideas. As a ministry, we would love to sit with you, discuss with you, talk and come out with solutions that can be actually some kind of a motivator or an accelerator to get back those problems that we have faced for 4 or 5 years previously, and now look at it freshly and come out with models that will work. And that is what we have been really churning across. There has been some consultation that have already happened. We are looking at the business models, whether they have given the derived result, and if they are given, is it necessary for us to now slightly bring in some more nuances into it, trying to bring some more elements that will add on to the rate of progress of wind energy installations in India. And collectively, I can say together, you and us can make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jagdale. We'll come to now questions. Go ahead. A few questions from me, and the questions I've been given by Mr. Giri, and then we'll take questions from the audience. I'm assuming we can go until 4:15. That would be 50 minutes, or do we have to close at 4:05? 4:15. Wonderful. Okay, Mr. Hansen, picking up on what Mr. Jagdale said, he said India can learn from your mistakes. So what lessons do you think you can share with us that you think are particularly relevant given where we are in India with respect to wind sector development?
It's a big question, and I think I could talk for that for 4 hours, but yes, I will try to do it brief.
Yes, but 60 seconds, please.
60 seconds, yes. Perfect. I think I will limit myself for 4 key recommendations. First of all, I think it's absolutely crucial to have political ambitions. It's really important to have policy action, and it's really important to have political action plans so we can see that there is a will to have offshore wind. So that's the first thing. The second thing is long-term planning. I think it's absolutely crucial to have a pipeline of offshore wind parks so we can see there's more than one coming. And then at the same time to have a good planning when it comes to our transmission grid. That's another recommendation. Then I think when it's going to invest in offshore, the lesson learned from Denmark is to establish a very attractive environment for investments. Our first tender process offshore were pretty expensive in 2010. The latest one in December 2021 was a zero bid. Actually, the state was receiving money from the bidders, and that's because we have a close dialogue with the possible investors to reduce the risk. The final thing I will highlight is that we need an open, free market with a lot of competition. That's the lesson learned in Denmark, that will drive down cost.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, the same question for you. What can we learn from experience of Spain as well as experience of Spanish companies elsewhere?
Yes, I would say the same thing that has been said earlier, and also I will follow the words of Mr. Martin. I think that simplicity is key in order to achieve what the government needs and also what the companies are looking for. Simplicity in order to have predictability, certainty, and also in order to have transparency. I think that price cannot be the main aspect in order to reach that, that goal, that quantity goal that the government of India has. But we also have to take care on the numbers. So the studies that have been done in terms of finding what is the best business model, the financial modeling of having these offshore wind farms in India soon is a huge step forward in order to limit or reduce lead times in terms of offshore wind energy, as it is quite a complicated business model to put in place. So reduce these lead times is key in order to gain momentum of having machines running earlier. And to reduce that, government has a very key thing to do.
Okay, I have a question for you, since Mr. Jagdale is here, and we should take advantage of his presence, no, but just to take advantage of your presence. So my question is, what would you suggest, Mr. Jagdale? What will make it easier for Spanish companies to do business here, or to be able to develop the wind sector, help develop the wind sector here? So what is your suggestion to him? What is your submission to him?
That's a very tricky question, especially
I will answer on your
having
behalf.
Mr. Jagdale here.
Spanish companies are already very keen to invest.
Yes, and okay, so
Yeah.
nothing more needs to be done then.
Yeah. A lot of Spanish companies are here, and a lot of more companies wants to come here.
Okay.
And especially in terms of offshore energy. In Spain, offshore energy hasn't started yet. We are only in a testing status, but the problem is that the depths of seabeds in Spain is very, very high, above 50 meters. So we are in a process of developing floating beds for the wind farms, and this is why it's taking longer.
So my question to you is, what suggestions or submissions you have for Mr. Jagdale? What can the government of India do, or MNRE do, to make it easier for organizations or companies from your country?
Well, in Spain we have learned the hard way, because the last 2-3 years we haven't had that much success in our auctions. We are resuming the success in auctions because we have changed another time our auction process. We have designed a new auction process based on a feed-in tariff per megawatt per hour. But this feed-in tariff has specific aspects, which are, we have introduced a minimum and maximum threshold of operational hours, and also it is adapted to the technology that is auctioned, and it is for a limited period of time, between 10 to 15 years. So we have introduced some kind of stability in the auction process.
You would like India to consider that?
I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Hansen, what suggestions do you have for Mr. Jagdale, since we have him here in a public forum?
Now I'm so happy that I have also good meetings with Mr. Jagdale in other settings. But sitting here, I think that some of the most important thing is that we have a long-term policy commitment, clear targets, ambitious targets.
Okay.
We need to have a clear pipeline. We need to have cost reductions, so we know who is bearing the risk, what risk should the government bear, what risk should investors bear. We need economic of scale. And finally, I think that it's also important to have a close cooperation between the wind developer, the government, and the TSO.
Okay. Mr. Rudrappaiah, I have 2 questions for you. My first question will be much the same as I've asked the other people. What is it that Mr. Jagdale and his ministry can do to make it easier for you to achieve your objectives?
Basically,
and I understand that you talk to him all the time and you probably have made recommendations, but we would like to know what it is that you would like him to do.
Basically, whatever our key projects which were coming up, anyway, we have all the support from the MNRE, but the key projects which were coming up, especially from the state of Karnataka, so we need speedy clearances. And
so are they not speedy enough right now?
No, they are speedy. I mean, whenever I come to MNRE, I meet sir, and
okay.
they have always been helpful.
Okay. All right. Okay. And before I ask Mr. Jagdale to respond to all the suggestions and submissions, I'm going to Mr. Pise. Mr. Pise, what is it that you would like MNRI to do to help you with your plans?
We need more CTU connectivity for our state. May not be from MNRE, it's under MOP.
Okay.
Yeah, and because with CTU connectivity, we can have more national projects than the state projects.
Okay. Let me now go to Mr. Jagdale. So, Mr. Jagdale, to begin with your response to suggestions from our country partners, but then also what is it, how is MNRE helping the states, not just Karnataka and Maharashtra who are here, but other states as well. So two different areas.
Yes. Thank you, and thanks to Karnataka and Maharashtra. They have been front runners in bringing wind to the mainstream in the early years, and but the good part is that both these states have a lot of potential still. Obviously, the transmission connectivity, which Mr. Pise just talked about, yes, that most of the sites that have been earmarked now are being on the radar for upgradation in the, or you are putting on the construction of the transmission lines to be done in those areas. But Karnataka, obviously, the Karnataka has a very good strength in terms of the resource, the land and the sites. And I see all the development that happened in the earlier years was towards the western and the southern part of the Karnataka, and now the entire eastern, northern part of Karnataka, which has good winds, which has good connectivity, whether it's the Bijapur, whether it's the Gadag, whether it's the Pavgada, as they mentioned about this largest solar park yesterday. But all these sites are there. What we are doing as MNRE is the state center coordination. I think we are receptive to their ideas. Obviously, what I believe, this partnership only has made this possible, and it is the states who do most of the bulk of the groundwork. They help in getting the clearances. They are helping us on the land. Us, when I say us, means the developers. Our job is just to bring in guidelines and tenders, and most of the work is those developers and the states, with the states, which they are doing it. So I appreciate the efforts that Cradle, MEDA, and everybody is doing, and other states, when I say they are doing in terms of. So what more we would like to do is, I think, if possible, they could also look at some state-specific tenders. Obviously, Rajasthan has taken lead on that. They have earmarked SECI themselves to, but then the location is based out of Rajasthan. Similarly, there can be some efforts made by Maharashtra as well as other states as well, so that the installations do happen in their states. But going forward, we will see more and more of these sites utilized, because we cannot earmark on one particular location, geographic location, which has given some dividends. But we'll have to spread our assets across the states. And we have that flexibility and the resource that is across all states. We do have a lot of potential sites that have an average PLF, which is above the techno-commercial threshold that is required. So I see in the next 8 years, 9 years down the line, all these states, including Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Andhra, apart from obviously Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, which are always in the forefront, and Gujarat, but all the other states also will come into the forefront. It's a collective federalism, I can say, and we are always in partnership with the states.
And your comments on what you heard from Mr. Navarro and Mr. Hansen?
Yeah, so I think in fact, Mr. Navarro, we had, in fact, he was also a part, we had a good virtual stakeholder with the Spanish developers, and one of the largest developer, which is Iberdrola, they had some recommendations. Obviously, the offshore, specific to offshore, because both Denmark and Spain are working on offshore, including some of the other countries. We are also looking at offshore. We have long coastline, we have different wind speeds, we have different seabeds. So the planning that is going to go into the Indian offshore development has its own variety of parameters that needs to be looked in. So we are all considering that, but just to share with all the audiences as well as you is that we do have a very, very strong partnership with Danish Energy Agency, which is DEA. And I have most of their colleagues, being discussing in and out. We have some of their technical expertise with us who we can interact and deal with them on a day-to-day basis. So what they have brought us also is the learnings, which we have incorporated in our business cases and the discussions paper that you set out. So we will definitely look into it. fortunately, we have a good seabed. We don't have to go right to the floating as of now because we have ample sites that have a depth less than 50 meters below the sea level. And therefore, we can have initial rounds of the conventional models of foundation on which the offshore wind. But the challenge is to bring in the new turbines and actually customize turbines that can suit the Indian wind regime. And that is why we have been discussing with the Danish authorities also, as well as the other government agencies, but also with the developers who are more prominent. And I'm sure they will be bringing their turbines. We have our own domestic base as well as which is very strong. We have almost 13 gigawatt of manufacturing capacity, and we add on to the offshore strength. I'm sure India is going to not only, it has to be very, very able supply chain in terms of wind. It will not only meet the domestic requirements, but will also cater to the export requirements, the international requirements. And I'm sure that's the dream that we carry on along with the manufacturers to have that. So we'll work on it together along with the inputs from the international partners.
Okay. We'll try to do about 7-8 more questions, few that have been given to me already. Mr. Jagdale, a question to you from the association that's holding this conference. Is there a possibility of including the wind sector under the aegis of the PLI scheme?
Yeah. There has been a request for considering the production link incentive for the wind. So let me put it straightway. The production link incentive sector were introduced to those sectors which needed some support. And when I say support in terms of India had a very weak manufacturing base in terms of, you look at the various sectors, you look at solar. Now, we had a very small manufacturing capacity in terms of solar. Vis-a-vis, if you look at the wind has a very strong domestic manufacturing base, very strong, capable manufacturers with a very skilled and very, very talented people that they are leading. So that advantage we have. Now that has already secured the domestic market. They're exporting, we have that. What we are doing at the moment is we are giving those concessional duty certificates so that their cost, raw material cost reduces. Now we have to look this holistically, whether how can we place this PLI into the overall game. That needs a very detailed deliberation and a very lot of convincing that is required, because at the moment I feel in the Indian wind manufacturing base is on strong footing.
Okay. There's another somewhat leading question that also comes from the association for you. Do you think that having a mandate of only round-the-clock RE tenders from the government will lead to greater penetration of firm RE in the grid? So I think they are already giving their answer in the question.
No,
what's your thought?
Round-the-clock wind definitely has an advantage, and we have seen in some of the earlier business cases that we have come across that when we have to go round the clock, the wind plays a prominent role. And therefore, while we move from a variable RE from variable RE to a very dispatchable RE scenario, I'm sure wind will play an important role. And some of the models that we have seen, that wind has an advantage. And as we grow more and more into wind, along with solar, obviously solar will take slightly more capacity than wind, but more the wind, less is the burden on the storage. So we'll look at this very, very holistically as the business models go forward. And I'm sure round the clock, dispatchable RE, we have to add that dispatchable RE would be critical for us to go forward and take the base load shifting from the conventional fossil fuel to more and more of RE.
Okay. We'll take a few questions from the audience now. We'll take it, if people with the mics, if you can come here, and I'm afraid I'm not wearing my glasses, so you'll have to stand up on the my right here in this column. Are there any questions here? And if you want to ask a question, please stand up so I can see you for sure. Yes, there is a question in the back. Could you get the mic quickly to him? He's on the left side, back. And sir, your name, organization, and who you would like to address the question to. And please don't say the entire panel, otherwise we will have only time for your question. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, respected panel members. My name is Ibrahim, and my company is D-Ship Carriers. We are ocean transportation and doing transportation of wind equipments. My very simple question, I can see we are moving in a very good direction, and my simple question is, anyone from the state or the Western countries, what are the measures taken so far for recycling these wind turbines, which is larger than this Boeing 747 blades? Because I know it is a very challenging to transport this or logistics-wise to carry over there.
That's a very, very good question.
So
probably we should go to somebody who already has that issue or has done something in that area. So maybe
somebody
Mr.
can
Hansen,
highlight
maybe
over there
Mr.
on
Hansen.
that particular point.
Yeah, Mr. Hansen, because yes, recycling of wind turbines.
Recycling of the wind turbines is something which you can highlight maybe. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's one of the most hot topics in Denmark at the moment. We have a lot of discussion about how we can reuse and recycle the blades. And we didn't crack the code yet. We have a lot of things in pipeline, a lot of good ideas, and a lot of demonstration where we didn't crack the code and find something which is commercialized at this current state. Now I'm just looking at my good team behind me. Is there anyone who has something to add on, supplement?
Yeah. Could you get the mic to the front row? I think, sorry, there's one over there. Okay, yes, yeah. Yes, please.
Matthew Delaney from the Danish Energy Agency. I think you're right there, Martin. I would add we have a very strong technology university, DTU, Denmark's Technological University of Denmark, who have done a lot of R&D projects in this space. I know there are a number of companies working and commercializing solutions and I know Vestas, as one example, I don't know if anyone from Vestas is in the room, has a sustainability strategy and now rolling part of this out. So a lot's going on, not just in Denmark, but globally within this area.
Okay. Thank you. Any other question from the audience? Sir, we'll come back to you if no one else has a question. Yeah, any other question on my right column here? If you can stand up if anyone has a question. No questions for anyone? Okay, well, on the left side. Yes, sir, go ahead.
We are from service provider. In generally, the tax benefit we are giving the OEM only. Why we will not give the service provider? Because now is only service provider is the main role of windmill maintenance. We are facing the tax very difficult to face the return to tax.
Okay.
Why?
I think Mr. Jagdale has got the question. Yeah, he's a service provider, maintenance. So why is it that you give benefits only to manufacturers? Yeah.
You'll have to elaborate. But are you talking of the direct taxes or the indirect taxes?
Both.
What? Both. Okay.
Yeah, because now totally in windmill industry, doing service provider is the main role of now. We are importing from other country. We are facing the lot of difficulties and tax also, because all customer is asking the manufacturer is without tax. Why you are? Because the cost is very different. The OEM is telling some parts price is low, but as a service provider, no benefit. And we have to pay.
I think, sir, we've got the question. Thank you, sir. Yeah, please.
So I think this has to be looked in detail. I think from the question, I understand you are trying to get some benefits to service provider. Yes. I think there are a lot of benefits on the component part if you are providing components also. That is common for all. But how do you differentiate these benefits? We'll have to really look in. Maybe you can send us some of the recommendations that you think we can look at it. We can look at it.
Next question, sir. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my question is on PLI.
Sir, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm O.P. Taneja, connected with IWTMA. My question is that in the future, when offshore is coming, when other turbine size is increasing, there is bound to be some more expensive things. And for the corporate sector, it is better to have some PLI in a fashion which can give some relief to the corporate sector.
Okay.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Taneja Saab, thank you. Basically, you can see that the government of India is contemplating to give benefits to the offshore wind sector. Now, there has to be some considerable progress in that. That is because everything cannot be given for a particular sector. You give PLI, you give VGF, you give other benefits, you give CCDC. So we are we are already looking at the viability gap funding, as you are aware, and the discussion paper has already meant that. So we need to slightly go on to that, look at this as the best benefit that we can provide. There is transmission benefit. There are certain other related RPO, REC related benefits that also have been contemplated in that. But I take your point, as we have certain considerable startup that base that we can look at, and then to revive and then to review the challenges that the sector will face in case there is any requirement. Obviously, at that point of time, it makes a little sense. That is what I personally feel. But obviously, the stakeholders we will welcome their suggestions on this and look at it more holistically. Thank you.
Mr. Rudrappaiah, I have a question for you. What lessons can you draw from experience of Gujarat or Tamil Nadu while you're looking at development in your states?
Basically, I mean, as far as wind is concerned, we stand number 3, as I told you earlier.
Right.
This has been possible because of our holistic key enabling policies.
But what will you be doing differently from what has been done those 2 places?
Exactly. Now we want to embrace all the new technologies which are coming up. We are exploring all the things. Even we are having a 360-degree view of the entire RE thing. Basically, we are starting an innovation center, incubation center with Indian Institute of Science to attract startups in this field. Apart from, we are also having a tie-up with the NSDC, National Skill Development Council, especially to develop a skilling center of excellence for the, basically for the O&M of windmills and things like that. And apart from that, we are creating a center of excellence for the for the internship programs for the engineering colleges. We are embracing all the new technologies which are coming to be always on the front runners.
Okay. Mr. Pise, if I can come to you. Sir, which regions or geographies are you most interested in attracting people to? Where are the potential sites now?
Actually, our Western Maharashtra is already developed. We are looking for Usmanabad area, like northeast areas of Maharashtra, Jagdale, Usmanabad, Tuzapur, and South Maharashtra, like Jat area, Solapur. And those are still remain to be unexplored.
And since you have some of the oldest wind farms in the country, are you looking at some repowering opportunities?
Yeah, we are looking for repowering, but there are some technical issues. Bigger blades can't be taken to those sites because of hilly areas.
Okay.
Yeah, 60-meter blades you can't take on that area.
Okay. Mr. Jagdale, you have the last word. 60 seconds, please. Okay. No, this limit was imposed by you because you told me 4:15.
No, but I think we had a good discussion all around. What I see is that during the last 2 days, there has been a good amount of interaction, and the offshore wind is also seen as one of those areas where there is a lot of interest amongst the international partners. The domestic developers are also keen. So this is going to play a very important role in the overall energy mix or electricity mix that we can talk. The onshore wind have the challenges that we have faced in the last 3 to 4 years on onshore wind. Those we are actually trying to now see how can we look at those freshly and come out with a certain interventions that can lead to the onshore wind growth also. But again, I want to reiterate that the Indian wind domestic manufacturing industry is a robust industry that has fed to this country and the world for almost 30 years down the line. So with the current technology that they have, 3+ gigawatts, some of the largest turbines in today we have is around 3.6 megawatt. So the turbines have evolved over a period of time. And considering that we have the potential to the good wind resources sites available, the Indian evacuation network is more robust and strong. And with the technology that is available, I think the risk mitigation elements are there into the system. As the government has taken a lot of efforts in also bringing in a lot of clarity and long-term risk mitigation that is evolved in the overall power purchase agreements, the power sale agreements as well. Plus on the overall investment scenario, there was a question which we didn't deliberate, but that was on the what we can do to attract foreign investments. We have 100% FDI approach, that is already there. And the payment security mechanism, which is one of the key elements that developers do perceive as a risk, has already been taken care of. And that has also been upheld by the highest authorities in the government of India. And that is why we think that we are in the safe zone for the next 8 years down the line. And we are here to achieve the 500 gigawatt target.
Okay.
We'll make our efforts.
That was a fantastic last word, and we are grateful for that. 30 seconds, if I can, you can bear with me 30 more seconds. The reason we are here, I have to plug, sorry, we are publishers of Powerline Magazine and Renewable Watch Magazine. Both of them, I think, are leading magazines. We also do RE Global, which is the global website. Also Global Transmission, which is also a company that does conferences, research, and websites related to electricity transmission. I think Mr. Hansen might have spoken at one of conferences in Europe last year. Am I allowed to thank the panelists, or is that MC's prerogative? Okay, it's your prerogative. Okay. All right, please, back to you, please.
You can definitely thank, but yes, the token of gratitude comes from us, from the organizers, which I would like you to kindly present it to our speakers. So thanking once again, respected Joint Secretary Sir, thanking Mr. Dinesh Jagdale. Okay, we start from there anyways. Thanking Mr. Pise. Thanking Mr. Hernandez, thank you. Thank you now to Joint Secretary. Thanking Mr. Rudrappaiah. And thanking Mr. Martin Hansen. To thank Mr. Brara, may I request Mr. U.V. Singh to please join and present the memento, expressing a thanks for this excellent moderation of this session. Thank you. And if I can request a group photograph to all of you. Yes. So collaborations, cooperations, scaling up our infrastructure towards capacity building and investments in technology, and a more conducive and a favorable environment from the Government of India. That's a way forward for the wind sector going strong in India.